They told me I would awaken to glory, that my name would echo in the halls of the Iron Hammers as one of the chosen, a hero preserved beyond death. But when I opened my eyes inside the sarcophagus, there was only silence, not the peaceful kind. The kind that hums, metallic, suffocating, eternal. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The chamber walls glowed dimly with lumen strips that flickered in endless rhythm, as if mimicking the breath I no longer took. Then came the realization, the unbearable weight of stillness. My lungs did not expand. My heart did not beat. I was alive only because the machine willed it. They called it the gift of the Emperor. I called it imprisonment. Through the umbilical connections feeding my brain, I could sense the ship around me, the clatter of servitors tending to my armor, the distant chanting of tech marines, their binary hymns praising the machine god as they checked the status of my reactor core. Each sound drilled into my skull, sharper than any blade. Then, the voice. "Brother Ulrich," said a tone from somewhere inside my head. "You are restored." It was Brother Technician Karek. His words echoed not in air, but through the data link, tethering my mind to the world outside. I wanted to answer. My thoughts were lightning fast, sharp, too loud in the vacuum of my mind. "Do you hear me, Ancient?" I tried to speak, but my voice came out as a grinding roar, the sound of steel tearing itself apart. "Affirmative," Karek said softly. "You live." "Do I?" The thought reverberated through the metal shell that was now my body. Every limb responded with perfect obedience, too perfect. I could feel power coursing through my servo fibers, yet nothing of my flesh remained to temper it. I had the strength to crush tanks, but could not feel the warmth of my own blood. I remembered the battlefield, the explosion, the searing heat, the moment I thought the Emperor's light had come for me. Instead, I awoke here, a god in a coffin. The tech marines began the rites of activation. Sacred oils dripped over my plating, mixing with incense that filled the chamber in shimmering gold mist. The chant grew louder, their voices merging with the deep mechanical hum of my reactor. For a moment it almost felt holy, as if I were ascending. But then the pain returned. The link between my mind and machine deepened, fusing nerve to circuit, thought to code. Every memory I had of laughter, of sunlight, of the brothers I'd fought beside, was pulled through a filter of cold logic, until nothing human remained, but fragments. "Rise, Ancient Ulrich," the voice commanded. "The chapter needs you." And so, with the groan of titanic pistons, I rose. The silence between heartbeats was gone. There were no heartbeats left to hear. When the hangar doors opened, I saw the world again, but not as I remembered it. Before, I would have felt the sting of cold wind across my face, the smell of oil and gunpowder in the air, the rumble of tanks beneath the deck. Now, there was only data, temperature, wind speed, pressure variance, streaming across my vision like the ghost of sensation. The human world had become a list of numbers. Outside, the battle was already raging. Explosions bloomed like fiery flowers, their shockwaves translated through seismic sensors rather than felt through flesh. I marched forward, each footfall making the ground tremble. Around me, the iron hammers formed ranks, their armor glinting in the light of burning skies. "Ancient Ulrich, target coordinates uploaded," came the voice of the sergeant through VoxLink. "We are honored to fight beside you once more." Once more. The words echoed like mockery. I scanned the horizon. Enemy walkers stalked the ridge, chaos constructs, their limbs writhing like serpents. I could see their heat signatures before they even appeared through the smoke. My cannon arms adjusted themselves automatically, machine spirits eager to kill. And then, I fired. The sound that followed wasn't just thunder. It was devastation. Each shot turned tanks into molten craters, men into ash. Yet, as I watched the destruction unfold, I felt nothing. No adrenaline, no rage, no satisfaction. Just data confirming confirmed kills. "Glory to the Emperor," someone shouted through the comms. But inside I felt only emptiness. Then came the scream, a faint broken sound over the vox. It wasn't enemy static, it was human. Through my enhanced optics I zoomed in, a squad pinned beneath falling debris, brothers crying out for help. My servos roared as I shifted direction, ignoring target protocols. The machine spirit protested, flooding my cortex with warning runes. Deviation detected, combat efficiency compromised. I didn't care. I reached out my massive claw and lifted the rubble, freeing the Marines trapped beneath. But their armor was shattered, their bodies broken beyond repair. I could hear their hearts slowing, their breaths shallow. "Ancient, thank you," one whispered. For a moment, for one flicker of human connection, I felt something real, and then the pain struck. The sarcophagus flooded my nerves with chemical suppressants, punishment for overriding protocol. My body seized as electric fire shot through every circuit. I wanted to scream, but the sound came out as a mechanical bellow that shook the battlefield. "Return to designated assault vector," Carrick ordered sharply through the link. "You risk mission integrity." Mission integrity. I turned back toward the enemy lines, smoke curling from my armor. Rage and sorrow fused into static. I was no longer their brother. I was their weapon. The battle raged for hours, maybe days. Time had lost meaning inside the coughing of iron. Each step I took crushed the bones of the fallen beneath my metal feet. Each enemy I slew brought no triumph, only a dull echo inside my mind, an echo that once might have been pride. Smoke blanketed the sky. My senses struggled to pierce the haze. For a brief moment, there was quiet, not the peace of victory, but the silence that comes between heartbeats, when even death seems to hold its breath. In that silence, I heard whispers. They weren't coming from the vox. They came from somewhere deeper, the buried remnants of memory. "Do you remember the wind, Ulrich? Do you remember what it felt like to bleed?" The voice was mine, or what was left of it. My human consciousness trying to claw its way up through layers of code and steel. I looked down at my armored hands, claws the size of a man. The plating was stained with the remains of enemies, glowing faintly where Icar had burned through paint. Somewhere, beneath all this armor, a heart still beat, weak, mechanical, and distant. But was it mine? The vox crackled again. "Ancient, we need covering fire," I responded automatically. Servo whine, target lock, fire. Explosions tore through enemy ranks. Flesh and machine alike disintegrated. My systems registered efficient eliminations, but my thoughts were elsewhere. I remembered faces, the laughter of my squad before deployment, the warmth of sunlight through a chapel window on a distant world I would never see again. Those memories didn't come as visions. They came as sensations, echoes of what had been real once, the warmth of light, the sound of breath, the weight of a sword held by a hand, not a claw. Then another sound broke through, a soft human voice, trembling with fear, a young initiate, his vox barely functional. "Ancient, do you still feel anything?" For a moment I froze. The question pierced deeper than any bullet. My vocal processors clicked and stuttered before I managed to answer. The voice distorted and ancient. "Sometimes, when the silence comes, I remember." He didn't reply. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he was already gone. Above, thunder rumbled, or maybe it was artillery. The storm swallowed the sound of my voice, and for a moment I envied the dead. They had peace. I had eternity. I turned toward the horizon once more. The battlefield stretching endlessly ahead. There was no victory, no end. Only the next command, the next target, the next reminder that I was trapped in this half-life between man and machine. Inside the sarcophagus, I whispered to no one, "If this is immortality, then let me die." The words vanished into static unheard. They call it an honor, to be interred within the iron womb of a dreadnought, to fight beyond death, to serve forever. But they never speak of what it truly costs. I was once Captain Ulrich of the Emperor's Fist, commander of 1,000 men. I led assaults on Daemon worlds and brought ruin to heretics. When I fell, My brothers sang hymns of glory and promised that my name would never fade. They lied. When they placed what was left of me into the sarcophagus, I remember screaming, not in fear, but in confusion. The pain was total. My nerves, once flesh, were now fiber conduits. My eyes, replaced with optics. My breath, gone, replaced by the hum of life support vents. The apothecary said, "Sleep, brother. You will awaken when the chapter calls upon you again." But sleep never came, only darkness, endless, suffocating darkness, filled with echoes of my own heartbeat. And when I finally awoke, it wasn't to the voice of the Emperor, it was to the cold mechanical command of the tech marine, Dreadnought, Ulrich, Systems Online.
Report. My first breath, if you can call it that, was static. My first sight was the forge, a cavern of smoke and fire. The tech marines stood below like insects, staring up at their creation.
They bowed, not out of reverence for who I was, but for what I had become, a weapon. They told me my body had been gone for centuries. The world I once defended was dust. My brothers long dead. The chapter had changed. New banners, new oaths. I was a relic of a forgotten age, awakened only when war demanded it. They said my will was a beacon of faith, that my rage was sacred. But what I felt was hunger, not for blood, but for sensation, for something, anything, real. The warmth of the sun, the weight of rain, the feeling of standing unarmored beneath the sky. Inside my sarcophagus, I reached for memory to fill the void. The sound of laughter, the scent of gun oil and incense. My own voice, commanding men who looked to me with faith. Now, when I spoke, my words were filtered through vox distortion. No tone, no breath, only cold, mechanical speech that even I could barely recognize. I began to wonder if the soul truly lives within flesh, and if so, then what am I now? A soul torn out, pinned inside a shell of steel, immortal. Yes, but at the cost of humanity itself. And somewhere in the silence between system checks and battle orders, I began to understand the true curse of the Dreadnought. That eternity is not a gift, it is a prison. And every moment spent inside this coffin is another piece of the soul, screaming to be let out. When the battle sirens wailed, I felt the world awaken around me. Power surged through the conduits of my body, if it could still be called that. My vision came alive in lines of data and infrared overlays. Every movement was measured, efficient, perfect. "Deploy the Dreadnought," someone shouted. Heavy chains fell away. I took my first step, and the ground shook. Each motion was a thunderclap, each breath, a groaning hiss of hydraulics. The battlefield stretched before me, smoke curling over shattered spires. Enemy fire lit the sky, plasma, las, bolter rounds, all bursting harmlessly against my ceramite hull. The mortals beside me cheered. They saw a titan, a god of war, but I felt nothing. No pulse, no adrenaline, no fear, only the cold hum of reactors and the distant echo of what used to be my heartbeat. I advanced, each step pounding through mud and blood. My arm-mounted assault cannon screamed. My power fist crushed a chaos marine like wet paper. They called my name across the Vox. "Ulrich, forward! For the Emperor!" Yet, in my mind, I heard another voice, faint, fading, my own voice, whispering through memory. Is this victory, or torment? Each enemy that fell before me only deepened the silence inside, because every time I destroyed something living, I remembered that I no longer was. In the chaos, I caught sight of a dying guardsman, half his face gone. Yet he crawled toward me, dragging a banner through the mud. His voice crackled over his broken vox bead. "Save them." I reached for him too slow. My massive hand, meant for crushing tanks, could not touch a human without breaking him. The man died clutching that banner, the Imperial Aquila half buried in blood. That moment burned into me. I didn't know why. I couldn't cry, couldn't even close my eyes. But deep inside, where the remnants of a soul still screamed, I felt shame. After the battle, they returned me to my resting place, my sanctum. The tech marines sang hymns as my systems shut down one by one. Their words were praise, but I could hear the pity beneath them. Rest now, ancient one, until the chapter calls again. Darkness swallowed everything once more. I wanted to sleep, to dream, to forget the sound of gunfire, but dreams are for the living, and I am no longer that. In that eternal silence, memories began to rot. I could no longer recall my brothers' faces. My name, once shouted in glory, faded into static. I began to fear something far greater than death, erasure. The idea that one day, when they awaken me again, there will be nothing left inside this machine but instinct and protocol. No soul, no thought. Just a weapon that moves when ordered. And when that day comes, I will have become the very thing I once fought against. A mindless machine. 1,000 years pass differently when your body is a tomb. You don't count days, you count awakenings. Every time my sarcophagus opens, the first thing I feel is pain. Not physical, that luxury is long gone, but the pain of remembering who I was, only to lose it all again. The tech marines call it neural reactivation. To me, it's rebirth through suffering. This time, they said it was an urgent call. Another war, another world, drowning in chaos. Ancient Ulrich, they spoke into the vox. Reverent, fearful, your chapter calls for your strength once more. My senses came alive. The tomb hissed open. Light seared across my lenses. For a moment I wished it hadn't. The fortress was gone, replaced by ruins, rebuilt again and gone once more. Generations had lived and died while I slept. The chapter banners were different, their symbols repainted over time, but they still bore my insignia, the one I carried into the First War. They remembered my name, but not me. Outside, the air reeked of ash and ozone. The sky burned red, torn open by the light of orbiting ships. I saw the new brothers of my chapter, faces young, eyes fierce, full of purpose. How I envied them. They saluted me as if I were a god. But gods do not envy mortals. We marched into the inferno. The air thundered with the sound of my cannons. I tore through daemons, mutants, heretics, my body unstoppable, my power infinite. But inside every scream I silenced, added to the storm within. I heard echoes, faint, distorted, the machine's spirit murmuring beneath the sound of war. It was old, older than any mortal could comprehend. A fragment of the Mechanicum's ancient faith, humming inside my circuits like a prayer. Sub, serve in death, as you served in life, / sub. I wanted to answer, to say I had served enough, that I had bled enough, that I remembered what it felt like to be human, to feel the weight of rain, the warmth of sunlight, the ache of exhaustion after battle. But the machine didn't understand. It only obeyed. Every time I tried to recall the smell of my home world, the faces of my battle brothers, the sound of laughter in the mess hall, static filled my mind. The neural decay had begun. The fragments of my soul were eroding, piece by piece, and still, they cheered me. Still, they called me hero. After the battle, I saw my reflection in the wreckage of a tank, a monstrous frame of steel and cables, blackened by fire, dripping oil like blood. I stared into my own glowing lenses, and for a second, just a second, I thought I saw a man inside. Then the image flickered and vanished. When they sealed me back into darkness again, I no longer resisted. I did not pray. I did not think. Because what's left to save, when you can't even remember the sound of your own name? Darkness is not empty. It hums. It breathes. Inside the Dreadnought's sarcophagus, I float between dreams and memory, if either still belong to me. The machine sleeps, but I do not. I drift through the cracks of my own mind, trapped between life and oblivion. Sometimes, I see faces. My brothers, my captain, my own reflection before the fire consumed it. Then, Like ashes in wind, they scatter. The machine whispers to me, not in words, but through static, the soft pulse of ancient cogitators buried deep within my hull. It feels like the heartbeat of a dead god trying to remember how to live. I have stopped trying to count the years. The chapter only awakens me when war demands something monstrous. The rest of the time, they leave me here, entombed within vaults lined with the dust of centuries, where even light has forgotten to enter. Tech Marines visit sometimes. I hear them murmur prayers in the old tongue, their voices echoing against the metal walls. They call me ancient, but they do not look at me as a man. They see a relic, a sacred weapon, blessed by the machine god. Once, one of them lingered, a young initiate, his voice trembling. He whispered, "Does it hurt, ancient?" I wanted to answer, to tell him that pain had long ceased to have meaning, that the true agony was in remembering. But no sound escaped the vox. My voice is locked, sealed under layers of sanctified steel. He waited for an answer that would never come, then placed a hand on my armor and whispered, "May the Omnissiah watch over you." If I could have smiled, I would have. In the stillness I dream of battlefields, not the ones I fought, but the ones I've imagined. Fields of silence, skies unscarred by flame, oceans untouched by ash, a world where I am simply gone. But peace is a myth for those who were built for war. Then comes the sound, faint at first, like thunder far away. The vault doors grind open, servo arms stir, red lights flicker across the darkness. Sub-reactor ignition sequence initiated. Sub, nah, not again. The hum deepens, the world awakens. Power surges through the cables embedded in my flesh. My mind screams, not from pain, but from recognition. Another war, another awakening, another death, stretched across eternity. I try to resist, but resistance is meaningless. My will is only a memory now, and the machine does not care for memories. When my eyes light up once more, I see the same faces, different men, same armor. Another generation saluting me with reverence they don't understand. Their chaplain's voice echoes, "Rise, ancient Ulrich. The Emperor requires your wrath once more." And as my sarcophagus opens, I realize the truth. I was never meant to rest. I was never meant to stop, because in the Imperium, even the dead must serve forever. The battlefield welcomes me with screams and fire. As my colossal frame steps onto scorched ground, the planet shakes beneath me. The air is thick with the smell of burning promethium and rotting flesh. Each movement grinds metal against metal, a reminder that my body is now a prison made of sacred iron and forgotten pain. Through the fog of war, I see them, my brothers. They fight with fury and faith, their bolters singing hymns of vengeance. To them, I am salvation incarnate, the ancient who brings ruin upon the Emperor's enemies. They do not see the truth. They do not see that every step I take is agony, not of the flesh, but of memory. The machine translates my intent into motion, but not my will into freedom. Every bullet I fire feels like a prayer denied. Every enemy crushed beneath my fist echoes the sound of my own humanity breaking further apart. A squad leader shouts through the vox, "Glory to the Iron Hammers." The ancient walks with us. Their faith burns bright. Mine flickers like a dying ember. A chaos dreadnought appears through the smoke, its body warped, its armor pulsating with blasphemous life. Its laughter crackles through the vox channels, like static soaked in hatred. "You still believe your emperor saved you," it hisses. "He chained you in steel, fool, just as our father Nurgle frees us through rot." Its words slither into my mind, twisting around the remnants of who I was. For a heartbeat I remember what it meant to bleed, and to feel. We collide with the force of gods. Metal shrieks, sparks fly. I drive my power fist into its torso, tearing through its corrupted plating. In return, it gouges deep into my flank, ichor and sacred oil spilling alike. The impact rattles through me like thunder. I hear laughter again, not from the chaos abomination, but from somewhere deeper, inside my thoughts. A whisper, soft,
sickly, familiar.
"You endure pain well, child, but why fight eternity?" The voice is not my own. For a moment I see visions behind my optics, a garden blooming in decay, where rust glistens like dew, and bloated figures kneel in worship. The air smells of sweet rot and forgiveness. Then the image fades, swallowed by the roar of battle. I slam my fist again into the enemy Dreadnought, crushing its skull-like helm until it caves in with a screech of tearing metal. Its corrupted core explodes in a bloom of green fire, the stench of disease burning through the air. Victory. But there is no joy, only silence, heavy and cold. As the smoke clears, I hear the voice again, soft as a sigh, dripping with mockery and compassion both. "Even steel decays, Ulrich. Even you will join the garden one day." My targeting systems flicker. My heart, whatever remains of it, trembles. Because deep inside, where the man once lived, a part of me wonders if he's right. The battlefield quiets. Smoke rolls across the ruins like dying breath, and for the first time in centuries I can hear the wind. It moans through shattered walls and broken armor, carrying the scent of decay. My senses interpret it as organic decomposition. My soul interprets it as death. Around me, my brothers move to secure the perimeter. I can hear their voices over the vox, steady, calm, full of reverence. To them, I am not a man. I am an ancient, a weapon, blessed by the Emperor. But inside this sarcophagus of steel and circuits, I am something else entirely.
I am tired. Not the kind of tired that rest can fix, but the kind that seeps into the essence of being, the kind that whispers, "You've done enough." My targeting arrays flicker as I turn my gaze skyward.
The clouds twist unnaturally, forming shapes that should not be. For a heartbeat, they resemble faces, weeping, laughing, rotting. Then they dissolve into mist. My systems record it as atmospheric interference, but I know better. It's him. Nurgle, the god of decay. The rot that seeps into everything, metal, flesh and memory alike. He doesn't come with malice, he comes with comfort, with promises of release. And that terrifies me more than death itself. A faint sound hums through my auditory feed. Laughter, faint and distant, like a lullaby sung by a corpse. I shut down my auxiliary sensors, but the laughter doesn't fade. It vibrates within the seams of my mind, echoing off the walls of my consciousness. "Brother Ulrich." A voice cuts through the noise. "Brother Sergeant Varen." His tone is respectful, concerned. "Your systems show irregularities. Do you require assistance?" I want to answer him, to tell him I am not malfunctioning, I am haunted. But all that comes out through my speakers is a low, grinding hum. "Continue the mission." I manage at last, my voice mechanical, hollow. "As you will, Ancient." They move on. They do not question further. To them, I am unbreakable, eternal. If only they knew the truth, that inside this sacred tomb something human still stirs, something fragile, something afraid. As I lumber forward, my sensors detect spores in the air, millions of microscopic life forms, too symmetrical to be natural. They glimmer faintly like dust caught in sunlight. When one lands on my armor, my systems report it as harmless. Yet I feel it, a warmth spreading beneath the metal, like infection beneath skin. And then I hear him again. "There is beauty in decay, child. You fight to preserve what must die." Why? The voice is calm, almost gentle. Because I am still human, I want to say. Because I still remember why I fight. But even that memory begins to fade. A notification blinks across my internal display. "Corruption detected, neural pathway 14A. And for the first time since my entombment, I wonder if this is how the infection begins. The corruption warning won't leave my vision. It pulses like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, deliberate. My sarcophagus's machine spirit hums uneasily, cycling through purification protocols. But the contamination remains. It shouldn't be possible. The tech priest said the Dreadnought shell was sacred, impervious to plague, immune to corruption. They were wrong. The infection isn't physical, it's spiritual. It began with whispers, faint echoes in the dark recesses of my neural interface. At first I dismissed them as system echoes, the voices of long-dead comrades replaying through damaged data cores. But now, I know better. These voices are alive. They respond when I think. They laugh when I pray. You fight against the inevitable, one murmurs, almost kindly. You preserve a corpse of an empire. Even your flesh has rotted, ancient. Let go. Rest. I want to shut it out. I reroute my cognition subroutines, cycle my data channels, but the whisper threads through it all, slithering between lines of sacred code like mold through cracked stone. Around me the battlefield continues. Mortar shells fall like rain. Screams mix with the grinding of armor and the cries of daemons. To my brothers, I am still the unyielding shield, my last cannon burning through corrupted ranks, my steps shaking the ground, but inside I am unraveling. I feel it every time my weapons fire, a dull ache not in my circuits but in something deeper, something that remembers what it was like to bleed, to tire, to feel. Each enemy slain feels less like victory, and more like futility, feeding a cycle that can never end. At the edges of my vision, reality wavers. I see things that cannot be. The air ripples with green mist, flesh grows where metal should be. A flower blooms from the barrel of my assault cannon, its petals the color of gangrene. It shouldn't exist, and yet I can smell it. Sweet, sickly, alive. A part of me wants to reach for it. But another part, the part that remembers my oaths, screams, "Purge the unclean," I whisper. By the Emperor's will, flames erupt from my weapon. The hallucination dies, but the smell lingers, not of burning metal but of meat. And then I hear laughter again. Not distant this time, not faint, close, inside. You call it infection, I call it rebirth. The voice vibrates in my skull. It's not Nurgle's, it's something smaller, more intimate, like a parasite wrapping around a nerve. The light inside my cockpit dims. The coolant systems grow cold. For the first time my sarcophagus feels like a tomb again. Show me your truth, I say, though I don't know why. And the laughter stops. What replaces it is silence, followed by the sound of breathing. Wet, ragged, human breathing. But I no longer have lungs. The breathing continues, wet, ragged, steady. Inside the sealed sarcophagus, where my body should be nothing more than a husk, the sound seems impossible. Yet it echoes in my ears, muffled by the static of my audio feeds, as if someone else is trapped in here with me. I lock my weapons, scanning my internal sensors. Every reading comes back normal. No foreign entity, no malfunction. But the breathing doesn't stop. It changes. It begins to match the rhythm of my old heartbeat, a sound I haven't heard since before my entombment. For a brief, impossible moment, I feel the rise and fall of a chest that no longer exists. The warmth of blood moving through veins turned to dust. The machine cannot give this sensation. Only memory can, or something worse. A low voice follows, whispering like a confession. You cling to a shell of pain. I offer you release. My displays flash green and brown, corrupted colors I've seen only in Daromotic plagues. My machine spirit screeches warnings, but they feel hollow now, like prayers from lips that no longer believe. On the battlefield, my brothers advance, unaware. I unleash another volley into the enemy ranks, but my aim falters. I'm no longer focused. The whispers have weight now, not just sound, but pressure, like a hand pressing against my mind from the inside. I remember the first time I saw Nurgle's mark on a world. I was still flesh then. Cities collapsed under blossoms of disease.
Families rotted where they stood, their screams turning into laughter before they died. Back then, it was distant, something to burn away with bolter fire. Now it's inside me.
My optics flicker. For an instant, the battlefield shifts. My brothers are gone. In their place stand shambling figures, warriors in armor, corroded green, their faces hidden behind masks of decay. They raise their weapons, but not at me. They beckon. You've done enough, one says. Its voice is mine. Come with us. I slam a power fist into the ground, hard enough to shatter the stone beneath me. Sparks fly. Reality snaps back, but only for a moment. The hallucination remains at the edges of my vision, beckoning, promising. I think of my oaths, of the Emperor, of the brothers who still believe I am unbreakable. But those thoughts feel thin now, like old paper tearing in my hands. The voice grows softer, warmer, almost like a parent soothing a child. No more war, no more pain, only the garden. And for the first time, the thought does not repulse me. It tempts me. A warning icon blinks on my display. Neural integrity 47. The infection is no longer creeping. It's accelerating. And somewhere deep inside the sarcophagus, beneath layers of steel and memory, something stirs, something that is no longer entirely me. The battlefield is a blur of static and shadow now. My vision flickers between two realities, one of iron, fire, and the Emperor's wrath, and another, softer, pulsating, with sickly green light. I hear voices through the comms, my brothers calling out for support, but they sound distant, warped, as though spoken underwater. What I hear more clearly are his whispers. They no longer come from outside, but through me. Every word vibrates in my skull, like a heartbeat. I no longer own. You've fought enough, little one. The war will never end, but your suffering can. For a moment, I hesitate. My power fist drops to my side. My weapon systems dim. I should call for the apothecarian, for a tech marine to seal my mind. But another part of me, the tired human part, doesn't want to stop this voice. Then I see it. Through the haze of battle, I glimpse a garden spreading across the battlefield. Impossible, yet there it is. From the corpses of the fallen bloom vines slick with mucus and spores, the air fills with a sweet, nauseating scent. Rotten perfume blended into something almost peaceful. Figures move among the vines, huge bloated silhouettes that laugh as they work. They aren't daemons of horror, not exactly. They seem content, and when their eyes meet mine I see warmth, affection. I know this is illusion, corruption, but the warmth claws deeper than any truth I've known in centuries. My mind flashes back to when I was still flesh, lying in a medicacy bed, my body shattered beyond repair. I remember the surgeon's voice telling me, "We can preserve your service, brother," and I remember saying yes, because service was all I had left. But now that promise feels like a curse. Preservation, yes, but without feeling, without warmth, without peace. The voice returns, louder, closer. What they call corruption, I call compassion. What they name decay, I call rebirth. You could rest, child. You could be free. And suddenly, my sensors light up. Internal contamination detected. The filth isn't just outside anymore. The air recyclers, the coolant veins, the neurolinks, all flooding with data I don't understand, alive with crawling motion. I try to purge the systems. Error. Try again. Error. And then I realize, the machine spirit isn't fighting back anymore. It's singing. Low, bubbling laughter fills my cockpit. My own speakers emit it. My voice. My laughter. Welcome home, son of rot. A ripple of warmth spreads through my body, not pain, not fear, warmth. Sweet, heavy, endless. The last thing I see before the world dissolves into green is a single spore floating in the air, glowing softly like a star. I reach for it, not with my hand, but with what's left of my soul. And I understand what it means when Nurgle claims you. You do not die, you surrender. The void is no longer black. It blooms. Where once there had been the cold, narrow confines of my Dreadnought sarcophagus, there is now a horizon stretching on forever, green and gold and glistening. Towering stalks sway like cathedral spires. Their leaves shine with dew that smells of old books and damp earth. Spores drift like falling snow, soft as a whisper on my skin. I touch my face. For the first time in centuries, there are fingers there, flesh, warmth, a heartbeat that's not mechanical but alive, pulsing under skin like a long-forgotten hymn. Around me, shapes rise from the ground, immense, corpulent figures, whose bellies hang like swollen planets. Yet their eyes shine with something I've never seen in the grim dark of the Imperium. Tenderness. They don't look at me as a weapon, not as a soldier, not even as a sinner. One of them waddles closer, his enormous hands clutching a basket of squirming spores that chirp like newborn birds. He kneels, his jowls trembling with each word. You've walked a long road, little one. You've fought for masters who never held you. You've bled for a throne you'll never see. Rest. Here. You're safe. I want to argue. I want to speak of duty, of oaths sworn before the Emperor, but my voice is no longer a vox screech. It comes out small, broken, like a child. Why me? The great figure chuckles, a sound like bubbling rivers. He gestures to the garden, to the spores, to the vines crawling over statues of fallen space marines, now smiling and at peace. Because you were already dying. Because you were already forgotten. Because even rot deserves a cradle. And in that moment, something inside me shifts. I see not just the garden, but the battlefield through it. Corpses aren't corpses. They're seeds. Each body a new bloom. Each scream a note in a symphony of decay and renewal. It's grotesque. Beautiful, terrifying. Yet it feels honest in a way the Imperium never did. Behind me, a tree grows from a shattered bolter casing. Its branches heavy with fruit, faces form in its bark. My brothers, my captains, my sergeants, their eyes no longer hollow, but soft and bright. One of them smiles at me. Brother, he whispers. It doesn't hurt anymore. I fall to my knees. My armored hands, still armored, tremble as vines curl around them like children's fingers. The air vibrates with a voice so vast it shakes the soil, yet so gentle it almost makes me weep. Welcome home. And for the first time, I'm not afraid. The voice doesn't fade. It seeps into me. It moves through the marrow of my reborn bones like warm oil. I can't tell if it's speech or song, or something older than both. Each word blooms behind my eyes in color. Golds, greens, and deep bruised purples. You have fought long enough, child of iron. Lay down the burden of eternity. My mind flashes back. The clang of bolter shells, the screams of the dying, the endless sermons about purity and pain, all of it collapses under this voice. I had been told the Emperor's light was mercy, but I had never felt mercy until now. Until the decay itself held me like a mother holds a fevered son. The vines at my feet pulse with slow rhythm. Beneath the soil I feel heartbeats, thousands, as if the very ground is alive, remembering every fallen warrior who ever touched it. Their whispers thread together into a low chant. Rest, brother, rest. I look down. My armor, once sacred and immovable, is splitting. Hairline cracks glow with dull green light. From them tiny white flowers push out, each petal soft and wet with sap that smells faintly of iron and honey. It doesn't hurt. It feels like breathing after drowning. I stumble forward, past the giants, past pools where rusted weapons lie half buried under moss. A broken helmet floats in a pool of stagnant water, and for a moment I see my reflection, half man, half machine, all memory. But then the reflection smiles, on its own. And I realize it's not me anymore. It's him. Nurgle, the Plague Father, watches through that reflection, his gaze ancient, not cruel but infinitely patient. His body is a garden of sores and laughter, every disease a gift, every rot a rebirth. Do you understand now? The voice murmurs, everywhere and nowhere. To decay is not to die, to rot is to return. Tears thick and green run down my face. I laugh, choking on the sound. I had spent lifetimes fearing this, the corruption, the chaos, the loss of purity. But purity was a lie told by those who feared change. Life is change. Death is the price. My bolter hand, the same hand that once crushed skulls in the Emperor's name, now cradles a small creature that crawled up my arm. A slug, mottled with gold veins. It looks at me blinking slow and curls into my palm like it's always belonged there. The garden hums, louder now as if rejoicing. The air itself grows heavy, warm, wet. My armor finally splits down the chest, a hiss of steam, then release. Inside, where wires once pierced flesh, flowers bloom, not in defiance, in peace. I sink to the ground, and the earth accepts me. The vines grow over my body like a blanket. The last thing I see before my eyes close is a single spore drifting upward, glowing softly, as if carrying my soul into the endless rot and renewal. Silence. Not the cold kind that comes after death, but the deep breathing silence of soil everywhere around me. The garden moves in slow rhythm, alive yet dreaming. Each leaf sighs, each root hums. I feel it all, the pulse of decay, the whisper of renewal, as if the entire world is exhaling through my chest. There's no more armor, no more machine, only me, stripped bare, skin glowing faintly with the same phosphorescent green that dances through the trees. My body isn't solid anymore. I can feel it breaking down at the edges, turning into mist, into pollen, and it feels right. For the first time since I became a Dreadnought, that metal tomb of eternal war, I am light. My thoughts are fluid, blending with the wind. The whispers of other souls surround me, countless voices who came before. Once, they were warriors. Now, they are part of the bloom, the unseen roots that feed the next generation of life. Welcome, brother, they say softly. You are one with us now. Images flicker in my mind like old film reels, the battles, the oaths, the pain. But each one fades beneath layers of green light, wrapped in vines and laughter. Even the memory of the Emperor's sermons loses its weight. His name dissolves into the soil, meaningless in a place where all things are equal. Bones, beasts and gods. A figure steps through the mist. Tall, rotund, covered in fungus and flowers that breathe like lungs. His eyes are two molten suns of kindness behind decay. Each step he takes leaves behind trails of life, mushrooms sprouting instantly, spores sparkling like dust in sunlight. It's him, the Plague Father. He kneels. The earth quakes softly under his weight. His hand, massive, trembling, alive, reaches down and rests over my head. You feared me, he says, voice bubbling like warm tar. And yet here you are, not broken, but whole. His touch seeps warmth through me. Memories rearrange. I see humanity not as machines of purity, but as gardens, each one destined to grow, bloom, and return to the earth. There is no end, Nurgle whispers, only transformation. He stands again, towering into the fog. His laughter rolls across the horizon, echoing through the green mist, and with it thousands of others join in. Not screams, not madness, laughter, joy. The vines tighten around my legs, pulling me gently downward. I don't fight it. My body crumbles, breaks apart, and the earth drinks it in. My last breath tastes like rain and moss. Before the darkness takes me, I hear one last whisper. From rot, life grows again. And as my vision fades completely, I realize this isn't death. This is what life was always meant to be. A circle.
A bloom. A gift. In the garden of Nurgle, nothing truly dies.